It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Perez coming to you from Baltimore. In a new twist on the ongoing political drama in Brazil, a federal prosecutor announced charges against former President Lula da Silva on Wednesday. The prosecutor claimed that Lula was at the center of a multi-billion-dollar corruption network that involved Brazil's oil company, Petrobras. Lula responded emotionally to the prosecutor's allegations on Thursday, saying that the prosecutor has no evidence on him. Here's what he had to say.
Eu tenho consciência de que o meu fracasso teria agradado os meus adversários. O meu fracasso não teria despertado tanto ódio contra o PT. O que despertou essa ira foi o sucesso do nosso governo. A maior política de inclusão social da história desse país.
Lula says charges aimed at him is to stop him from running again for the presidency, even though the prosecutor accused Lula of being the mastermind behind Brazil's most notorious corruption scandal known as the car wash. The actual charges are limited to his taking of bribes in the form of an apartment renovation and a payment for a storage unit. These accusations come just weeks after Lula's successor, Dilma Rousseff, was impeached in what her supporters call a legislative coup. Joining us now to discuss these developments is Siobhan Saxena. He's an Indian journalist based in Brazil for the Times of India, The Wire, and Outlook magazine. Thanks so much for joining us, Siobhan.
Yes.
Siobhan, so tell us about the prosecutor's accusations here. Lula and others not only deny his involvement at the center of this corruption ring, but also that they deny that he's guilty of the more limited accusations in terms of accepting monies for renovations or a storage unit. What's your thoughts on all of this?
I think it was all quite bizarre, in my opinion. The prosecutor in the southern state did a press conference. He made a very elaborate PowerPoint presentation trying to prove that Lula was the mastermind. He called him the general or comandante or commandant of the whole Operation Car Wash, the investigation into the multi-billion-dollar scandal in the state-owned company Petrobras. But the most surprising thing was he made very, very serious allegations against Lula, but they didn't produce any evidence at all. I mean, they tried to prove that Lula was guilty of corruption or Lula was mastermind of this multi-billion-dollar scandal through PowerPoint presentation. They made put Lula's name in the center of a slide and all arrows pointing towards him, and that was the only evidence produced. At least two lawyers, one of them said that we don't have any evidence against Lula, and another lawyer said that, but we are convinced, we have conviction Lula is guilty. So this is a very, very bizarre case, in my opinion. They're trying to pronounce someone guilty without evidence on the basis that they have conviction that Lula is guilty.
Now, all of this kind of tactics that the opposition is involved in succeeded when it came to Dilma Rousseff by having her impeached, although there was no real evidence of her having done anything extraordinary illegal. She was just shuffling some accounts in the state books, and they couldn't prove any criminality. Do you expect that charges against Lula will end up in the same kind of way?
I believe so, because Lula is, everybody knows, it's an open knowledge that Lula is he's contemplating to run for president in 2018. And if you ask supporters of Workers' Party, to which Lula and Dilma Rousseff belong, that the whole idea behind this, what they call a legislative coup, is to finish with the Workers' Party. The Workers' Party has been in power in this country for 14 years, and under the rule, when Lula was president for 8 years and then Dilma for 6 years, tremendous changes happened in the country. And there has been a very, very strong reaction from the country's elite against these changes. against Workers' Party, against Lula and Dilma Rousseff. I'm not saying that there's no corruption in the Workers' Party. Some of its top leaders are in jail for corruption. There has been serious corruption allegations against Lula as well, but nothing has been proved. But the reason I believe that he may
Can
end
I
up...
ask you about that particular point? In an interview I did with Alex Quadros, who wrote the book called Brazilianaires, in that interview he actually said that there was some receipts that were produced in the premises of Lula da Silva that could be produced as evidence for some of the payments related to the renovation of the apartment and so forth. You've been covering Brazil for a long time, and this particular issue very acutely. Do you think that has any merit to what Alex Quadros is saying?
I think that the allegation against Lula is that he's the owner of a triplex. And the cost of the triplex is about 3.7 million reais, almost $1.2 million. And that is a charge against him, that he got that apartment. He bought that apartment through bribery money. So if they say Lula and his wife, they're the owner of that apartment, they have to produce the ownership documents. And those documents have not been produced. They have not established any money trail. This kind of selective leaking of so-called evidence has been going on in Brazil for 2 years. All these leaks come from Polícia Federal, the federal police, or from the judge himself. And the judge, Sergio Moro, the judge who's overlooking this Operation Car Wash, he's been giving interviews, he's been leaking reports, he's been leaking some kind of evidence to, mostly to O Globo, the biggest media organization in this country, and trying to establish Lula's guilt by suspicion and through this selective media leaking. But if you talk of a concrete evidence or solid evidence which establishes any kind of guilt or any proof that Lula is the owner of that apartment or he has something to do with the apartment, in my knowledge and knowledge of many journalists in this country, nothing has been produced so far. So the whole thing is very, very suspicious.
They seem to not believe in reasonable doubt whatsoever when it comes to accusations, allegations, and prosecutions in Brazil. The next step in all of this now is a decision by the anti-corruption judge Sergio Moro on whether to take Lula to court. Does it look like that will happen?
I mean, the way Judge Sergio Moro has behaved so far, I think he will accept whatever evidence has been produced against Lula. If you look at the interviews, he talks like a politician, not like a judge, like some kind of moral police force in this country. And if you look at the whole Brazilian picture, I've been in this country for 4 years, and I came in 2012. At that time, it was looking like a very, very promising country, very stable democracy. Economy was not in bad shape. Everything was fine. Inequality was coming down. And in just 4 years, the whole picture has just gone upside down. Dilma Rousseff, who was president, she has been impeached. Lula, who was the most popular president ever, is now facing corruption charges. And the most corrupt party, the PMDB, is in power. So the whole picture has completely changed. If you like to call it a coup or not, that's a different issue. And the most discredited politicians are actually running the country. So if you look at the whole picture, I believe that yes, Lula can be arrested and he can be put on trial for these corruption charges.
Now, Siobhan, the people of Brazil that's been out protesting on both sides, or many sides, but both sides, largely that is pro-PT and anti-PT, have been seeing, I think, more clearly through the forest that's getting created for them. What are the reactions of the public, and are they going to be able to, in your opinion, be able to persuade the general opinion in terms of that they want to retain and sustain their democracy here?
I think the large number of people who came out on the streets in the past 2 years against corruption were basically marching against the Workers' Party. And I say that because the people who are running Brazil now, Michel Temer and others, they are deeply involved in corruption. There were very, very serious allegations against Michel Temer himself, and he is not even eligible to contest election because of his corruption charges. But all those people, mostly the upper middle classes and middle class, have gone back to their homes and they're not in the streets anymore. Now what I'm seeing here, since Dilma Rousseff's impeachment, and the case against Lula, a lot of young people are walking the streets in very big numbers, the students, unions, activists, and they're not really supporters of Workers' Party. And this is the crowd. These are the people who are worried about Brazilian democracy. So they're asking for direct elections. They're asking Michel Temer to quit, to step down from his post, and they want fresh elections so that Brazil can be put, in their opinion, back to democracy. So this is what is happening. But also the people who were out on the street against Dilma Rousseff and Lula earlier, they're also slowly realizing what's happening in the country. In just a very, very short time, in a few months, Michel Temer has been in power since May, is completely changing the social and economic policies, rolling back all these social programs, all the benefits given to poor people, given to working people, given to middle-class people. They're talking of 12-hour work in Brazil. They're talking of cutting down pension schemes. They're talking of doing away with minimum salary. And I think that Brazil as a country is not ready for this kind of drastic, this kind of shock doctrine, which is being introduced by Michel Temer's government. So people are already out on the street, and I think in coming days, as people realize the real implications of these policies and they feel the pain of these policies, we can see more people coming out on the street in support of democracy and against these policies.
All right, Siobhan, I thank you so much for joining us today, and I know you're going to be keeping a close eye on what's going on, and I hope you join us again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.